Hey there, Chris Manning here with my co-host Evan Damrell on the Locked On Cavs podcast, your daily look at the Cleveland Cavaliers. On today's show for Friday, January 14th, 2022, we are going to talk about Cam Reddish, a potential Cavs target now off the market, and the Cavs 2 weekend games against San Antonio and against Oklahoma City, both on the road as Cleveland finishes up their road trip. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Before we get into the business of today's show, we want to thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. If you're doing that, remember we are free and available on all platforms. That includes YouTube, where Evan and I are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're about 50 away, so go hit subscribe now. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or your podcast platform of choice, all you have to do is go down into the show notes and click the link. I put it in there for you, and go subscribe right now. It takes like 10 seconds. Go do it. Again, on today's show, we are going to talk about the Cam Reddish trade. He's going to the Knicks. We're going to talk about Cavs Spurs and Cavs Thunder. But Evan, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Not too much, man. I got judged for buying fake house plants, but shout outs to Dunkin' Donuts, the superior chain coffee place. Their Girl Scout flavors are back. Those Girl Scouts work really cookies year round for us, and these coffee with their delicious thin mint mocha flavor. They're not a sponsor. This is just a personal plug.
You read this personal plug like they like Dunkin' dropped you the bag, and like I respect the bit.
Oh, dude, if I was a Dunkin' Donuts influencer, I would be so happy. I drink their coffee so much.
Truly, all I think you want in life is for someone to like let you like influence people on social media and like hawk products that you. I don't think you want to do anything else.
I want to never pay for groceries or food ever again because so many restaurants and companies sponsor me.
You are the
next is my cat. If I can get Base Paws and Science Diet to sponsor and Petco, I'm set.
Okay, I'm done. I'm done with this. Moving on.
How are
Cam
you,
Reddish.
though, bud?
I was doing good, and then I reminded that you're just a corporate like shill brought into the metaverse. So
listen, man, capitalism is a corrupt system, but sometimes you got to ball in order to thrive. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't know what that means. Anyway, Cam Reddish is going to the New York Knicks via a protected first via the Charlotte Hornets. Solomon Hill and a second-round pick going on as well. This was a move that I don't think was. Let's just say I think Cam Reddish going was not a surprise. It was kind of rumored. There's some recent Travis Schlenk comments about this. Evan, I think like we can read here and say you can read what I don't think we can like peg exactly like how and why this like whether what was the price, which doesn't feel like a lot, but I can understand where like he's due a contract extension and stuff and all that stuff. Like the price is what it is for Cam Reddish. Cavs I think had some interest. Don't know if they were like in love with him, but certainly, he's going to the Knicks. To that shots to all the people that got to do content about reuniting Zion with RJ and Cam Reddish off today. But here's my kind of way I want to frame this. When this, let's just say this kicks off the trade market as we understand it this year, and to some degree, right? Whether Atlanta, to me, seems if you read the tea leaves, it makes me think they're probably trying to make it on the move because they now have an open roster spot. They got a first round pick back that they can kind of throw in there as well. Shams reporting that like basically it's like Capella and Trey are safe and like everyone else is kind of like up for grabs for the right price right now for Atlanta, who again we talked about on yesterday's show, we're kind of behind the pack of the rest of the East. But if you look at this, does this change about how you would view the Cavs market from a Cleveland perspective and their ability to perhaps go out and get someone that they've been linked to and have had some interest in the past? Whether it's obviously not going to be Reddish, but let's say Karis LeVert, Buddy Hield, some other name out there that we want to talk about.
Yeah, I think it shuffles the deck a little bit. I'll be frank with you folks. I had to look up the pick protections on this protected pick. So it's a top 18 protected 2022
It's gobble.
First.
It's a bunch of it's a bunch of like it's a bunch of
probably going to convey to Atlanta. It's of no use to them right now. They have an open roster spot. So I feel like that pick's not going to be at the Hawks very long. I'm sure a lot of people are saying, well, why the hell didn't the Cavs try and do an offer like this? So like maybe they throw in Dylan Windler, who's probably on the same level as Kevin Knox, I'd say. and a pick with similar protections on it for Cam Reddish. I don't think a lot of people have watched Cam Reddish this year. He's quite the experience. He's a bit of a polarizing player. I don't think he really naturally fits the Cleveland's ecosystem, especially because he is going to be extension eligible this offseason. And if you're the Cavs, do you want to make that primary investment in a guy when you have to pay Darius Garland? You're already paying Jared Allen. You have to pay Isaac Okoro the next year. You might have to pay Colin Sexton as well. Do you want to commit that type of money to another young player that still needs time to grow and flourish and develop? Because Woj put it best, Atlanta has a lot of wing players, and Reddish could just never find a clear path to play for the Hawks. And this trade makes sense in a vacuum because you're sending him to New York where he'll get more playing opportunities, and will probably be a fun pickup in fantasy. I might pick up Cam Reddish after this show, actually, in my 0-11 league as John Favreau's the Zion League. 0-12 at this point. I just given up. I burned $20, folks. But
you took Kyrie and Zion just to flex from you, my guy.
Hey, listen. Everyone thought Kyrie was going to play in New York for a hot second, but everyone forgot New York laws and legislation because the NBA is not that powerful. But either way, jokes aside, I think this just shuffles the deck for the Cavs. I think Karis LeVert is probably the most realistic trade target anyway. I know people are mentioning Dennis Schroeder as well. I think with the JaVale McGee exception, Schroeder hardly playing for Boston right now. Maybe the Cavs could finagle a trade where they use the McGee exception and absorb his contract, and maybe they part ways with like Dean Wade or Dylan Windler or somebody that's kind of towards the tail end of the rotation, because I just don't think Lamar Stevens is really going to be like, oh, the Cavs are going to trade him immediately. I think they're going to lean on him a lot going forward, so they don't really want to give him up. But since the Cavs are locked into 15 roster spots, they have to sacrifice some bodies, so there might be some movement. But I really do think Karis LeVert, and I'm a fan still of the Eric Gordon trade. Timeline-wise, it doesn't make much sense, but Eric Gordon provides three-point shooting and a little bit more veteran experience for a young and impressionable locker room, which is always a plus in my book. So I think if I had to rank him, I'd go LeVert, Gordon, in just that order. And then I'm a fan of getting Dennis Schroeder because Rajon Rondo, again, is 35, has 16 years of experience under his belt. He could be still a positive veteran presence, but it doesn't hurt to have extra playmaking and possibly shot creation coming off the bench as well.
Yeah, the Gordon thing is, I think it's about the price for me. Like, he's owed a bunch of money next year. I don't know if I want to give up a first to pay him a bunch of money.
I don't think you'd have to give up a first. You could probably give up a second or two. I know that was the hypothetical Bobby Merckx floated, but I just don't see it.
The first is tricky. And I'm just frankly more interested in LeVert compared to a lot of the other options out there. But I'm just curious to see if this then I think what is left unknown here, and I think is a good place to leave this discussion, is just I am curious to see if this kickstarts the trade market at all, just because Atlanta seems like a team that is going to try to do something. And they, to me, they've been kind of like some Ben Simmons smoke. I think it'd be fascinating if they went down the Ben Simmons path, just from like a how does that work perspective. They now have that open roster spot. The deadline isn't like tomorrow, but is this going to kick off some trades, kind of get the rumor mill flying a little bit? And again, I think the Cavs are a team that are going to play things very tight. We'll see who they're linked to. We'll see who they're not. We'll see how that kind of bears out ultimately when we kind of get to the postmortem and get to break all that down. But I will be very fascinated to see if this is just one trade and then we'll get a flurry closer to the deadline, or, no flurry at all, or if this is just kind of, or if this is like the first like line of defense kind of breaking down as we kind of get into closer to trade season.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was just going to add real quick before we head to break. NBA insider Jake Fisher did note that he thinks the Cavs might be a little more quiet than people were hoping leading up to the trade deadline. He thinks they're going to try and offload Ricky Rubio's expiring contract and use that 2022 first-round pick of theirs because let's be realistic, folks. It's going to be in the late teens, early 20s when the Cavs probably end up picking this year. And I am still a proponent of the fact that you need to stop bringing in so many young, talented, still bringing young talent to develop, but investing on a known commodity to help your team immediately and possibly in the future is probably a smarter move long term for this Cavs team because they have an established big three. But I just don't think we're going to see a huge blockbuster move. I don't I know the Cavs, I've heard it a zillion times, I'm sure you have too. The Cavs have been interested in Ben Simmons. I think every team would be remiss, every team not to be interested in Ben Simmons, but I just don't see the Cavs making a splash. And I'm intrigued by that Atlanta fit too. More intrigued by the fact on how the heck John Collins and Joel
You
Embiid.
would yeah, you would think. And what happens with Tobias Harris in that situation as well?
I think you'd have to make a 3-teamer because I believe the reports that Morey is trying to package Simmons and Harris together just to get both of those contracts off so that they can go James Harden hunting in the summer.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a fascinating lead up. I'm excited for all of the leaks, and
Me too.
yeah, I'm intrigued. But all right, after the break, we're going to get into the first of Cavs 2 weekend games. That's going to be Cavs Spurs. That's Friday night, and the second to last game of the road trip. But Evan, you're first going to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline.
Absolutely. BetOnline would like to wish you, yes, you, a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Locked On to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, do not wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Evan, we're back. Let me ask you this: Cavs Spurs on paper. Do you find this to be a competitive game? Do you
Yeah.
find this to be a interesting game? What do you make of it as we kind of analyze it on paper?
I think it's all of those things. The Spurs aren't great record wise, but I think they are a scrappy team, if that makes sense. Like they're a team that will not lay down and go quietly against the Cavs. I think DeJounte Murray just rules. Derek White being out is kind of a bummer if he's still out for the Spurs. He was last I checked. But I think this is a fun Spurs team. I think this is a team the Cavs should beat. I think this is a game where, like JB Bickerstaff, if you asked him, he'd use the coaching cliche and say he's taking care of business right now and not working overtime. But I think the Spurs have so many talented young guards on the roster. They've lost 4 in a row to Philly, Brooklyn, New York, and Houston. They play Cleveland, like you mentioned, on Friday night, but they have a lot of fun young pieces. But like I said, DeJounte Murray's really cool. Lonnie Walker, I think, is neat, even though he's not really like a part of the long-term plans in San Antonio. Your guy Jakob Pertl is doing some things for the Spurs as well, and they have some interesting pieces. I just still think they're a little bit away in the midst of a retooling / rebuild. And I'm honestly impressed that Popovich is going to probably see it out for another year or two.
Yeah, just to look, keeping some things in mind for people as you want to understand this team that maybe haven't watched this year. This is as of 1:13 as when we're recording this, so things could have changed. I don't think they play on Thursday.
They do not.
They do not, so they're off. Just so some of these things could change if other teams change, but they're relatively. This is where they are. 12th in the West in terms of record, 20th overall in the league in net rating, 19th in offense, 21st in defense. According to Clean of the Glass, they are 29th in expected win total. Basically, they are playing much worse than their numbers would indicate to think that they are. Over the last 2 weeks, they are minus 11.4 per 100 possessions in net rating. That's 29th over that 2-week stretch. And there's a reason for that, obviously. They have Keldon Johnson, Doug McDermott, Devin Vassell, and Derek White, among some other guys, but those are the main guys in the league's health and safety protocols. That is a big chunk of their roster, and that's an issue. They are also 30th in three-point rate and 18th in rim frequency. They are also second, in mid-range frequency overall, with almost 40% of their shots coming in the mid-range. To kind of compare this to what people might expect if you're watching the Cavs night in and night out. Cleveland is actually 18th in just below the league average of 30.8% of their shots in the mid-range. Their Cavs take 29.5% of their shots in the middle of the floor. So San Antonio has this kind of old school thing. They don't take a ton of threes. The guy that I think I have the most fun watching on the team is just DeJounte Murray. I think he's having a really interesting year. He's really, really good. I think should be kind of maybe not going to make the actual All-Star team, but should be in the running for that. Really long, really skilled, having kind of a really interesting breakout year. Big Jakob Pertl guy, as you alluded to. I am curious to see, if on paper, Evan, I look at this. This is a team that I think stylistically the Cavs should do okay against. And I think secondarily, and I think perhaps if you're JB Bickerstaff kind of mapping out this game, this team is missing a ton of its best players. It's playing thin. It's going to be a well-coached. This is a Popovich team and everything. But they're missing a ton of key guys because they're in the health and safety protocols. This is a game that, yeah, you've had a day off. I understand, maybe still Darius is not 100%, all that stuff. This is a game on paper you look at, and I think you got to say, okay, this is a game we should go in and try to win, just because this is the team not at full strength, and we kind of have to be the team at this stage that takes advantage of some of this stuff. I think that's got to be something Cleveland does here.
Yeah, and the other thing is they play Oklahoma City the following night, and Oklahoma City again is not a great team record-wise. Statistic, like they have a lot of young pieces that are still growing, but they're annoying. They're scrappy a lot, like the Spurs are. It's a good point where you said that a lot of their key pieces are out doing the health and safety protocols. Last night when the Spurs played the Rockets, Derek White and Devin Vassell were questionable, so they could be back against Cleveland, which could kind of bolster things for the Spurs a little bit, but I don't think it's going to do much. But like you said, I think this is a game where the Cavs just go in, take care of business, hopefully wrap things up earlier so they can rest up a little bit, because the Thunder are going to be annoying. And the Thunder are off on Friday leading into Saturday, so they get a day of rest, so the Cavs don't get that benefit.
Yeah. Should also note that the Cavs are now 5-5 in their last 10. I think it's just interesting just to think about this kind of game too for me. Like, and I think this whole weekend slate, and we'll talk about the Thunder after the break, but I think you look at this kind of slate, these are games that, like, I think if I was putting myself in like a fan shoes and like kind of thinking about the season, I kind of just think like this is the kind of one of the fringe benefits of, like, I think for us covering a team, because like I think there's years in the past where we'd have looked at a game like this and been like, okay, this season already is kind of like off the rails a little bit. Like, it'd be hard. There's some games, frankly, like the last couple of years, you look at them and say, I don't know what I'm going to learn from this. Like, I don't. And if you're a coaching staff, you talk to coaches about it. Like, there's some games that are just like, we have to throw this out to some degree because it was just so weird. This isn't quite there on the Cavs side of things, but like, this is just a game that, like, just because, even though this isn't a full strength Spurs team, even though this isn't like necessarily like the kind of high profile matchup it might have been, like when, there's that game in San Antonio where Kyrie just like went off, and that was kind of like the last end of that Spurs, kind of that version of the Spurs, at least. I think this is like a game that has a little just more weight to it, just because like the Cavs are a team that the rest of the year are fighting for playoff positioning. That's just where they're at.
No, they absolutely are. And this is like a game like Utah. This is a game where the Cavs go in and just kind of take care of business, because this is a win. If the Cavs do win, that'll matter a lot down the line too, where the Cavs just kind of need to win these games against not lesser opponents, but opponents that are banged up or maybe dealing with their own COVID issues. And just look forward to the next one, which is Oklahoma City. And then you take care of maybe these two. If you go 4-1 on this road trip, that's a huge success for the Cavs, because I thought this was going to be like one of the most brutal stretches for this Cavs team to start the season. And then you play Brooklyn on Monday, and Kyrie Irving will probably play because he's a part-time player on away games, and that'll be interesting too. But you can't like think that too far down the line. You just got to focus on who you're playing on Friday, which is the Spurs. And yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. And in other good news, the Spurs are wearing the Fiesta jerseys Friday night. It's a big win for all of us.
Where do the Spurs like weird colors kind of rank on your, like when they have the black with like the orange and the pink and that light blue? Where do they rank on your like weird alternate jersey rankings?
Oh, weird. I think they're kind of they're like the Cavs 90s jerseys. They're charming.
Okay, I agree.
I don't think you can make that your permanent look. The only team I think could like pull it off as their permanent look is if the Heat adopted the Vice color scheme as like their permanent look. Like I think that's just such a clean look, and they really like got that branding down. But like I think there's something charming about them like fully leaning into the Fiesta colors after this is being something that the fans at least have worn for so long, and they've done it 2 years in a row.
Just as a note, the Cavs are, it looks like they are 2.5-point favorite. They're minus 2.5 against the Spurs on the road here. So let's keep that in mind. That's not insignificant that there's it's a push in terms of minus 110 for both sides. Over under for the game in terms of points is 224 according to our friends at BetOnline. But the Cavs slight favorites. That's kind of interesting considering the home team gets a bump.
And
Okay, after the
I'm
break.
also one last thing.
Yeah.
If Rondo is available, I wonder how he's handled because of his hamstring issue.
Play him 10 minutes.
No injury.
Play him 10 minutes. Don't play him Saturday. That's kind of, I would honestly play the long game here if I'm, but that I am also just like, this is a marathon, not a sprint, and the Cavs are sort of just like, we're going to play Evan Mobley like 36 minutes. Like, it's a small thing that we didn't talk about.
48 minutes the other night.
Dude, don't tempt JB with that. He might do it, but
no, he did it the other night.
But I just mean like as like I made like I think a joke at the beginning. There was like JB like might play Evan Mobley as like his Jimmy Butler to hit to his Tibbs, and like
Oh
that's
God.
the fact that he was like in the game last against the Jazz like late in the game. And I understand there's like some subbing stuff, but like I didn't know why he was in the game with 3 minutes to go. This game was done. Like just get
Midway in the
him.
third.
Just get him out of the freaking game, man. It's not worth it. All right,
So
after the break.
what you're telling me is, I'll say after the break. Go ahead.
Yeah, after the break, we're gonna get into Cavs Thunder, and whatever Evan's point is gonna be. But first, we gotta tell everyone about our friends at Built Bar, who, as you know, is the best tasting protein bar in the whole freaking world. They have so many great flavors, including Evan's favorite cookies and cream, mint brownie. They just brought back white chocolate raspberry, which is an absolute banger. Most Built Bars have 130 calories, which is 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Built Bars can be the protein bar that aren't chalky or waxy or taste like a chemical spill. They are the best tasting protein bar. It's like a candy bar that's just got some good protein and some good numbers on it. So go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That is any order, even if you're a repeat customer. So use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Check out that cookies and cream. Check out that mix box if you want to try all of them in one go. Okay. Evan, what's that point you wanted to make before we went into the break there?
So since Evan Mobley is so advanced and so ahead of schedule, when is he going to gather up Kevin Pangos and a few others and just challenge the Cavs starters to a game and just absolutely annihilate them? You called him his Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, but like that means the world that it happens in, it means the Evan Mobley thinks everyone around him is a fraud, and I don't think we're there. And like he's then gonna
Also,
like summon.
Evan Mobley has to speak more than like 3 words in a sentence.
Or then he has to like summon like an ESPN personality. By the way, there is like I was right around when he had to go on the COVID list, but Zach Lowe did say that he was supposed to have Evan Mobley on his podcast, and I was fascinated by that just to see if Evan Mobley would say more words than Zach Lowe.
The shortest low post in history.
Yeah, Zach Lowe just like excruciatingly dragging things out of Evan Mobley. Would have been interesting just for fun. But okay, some key Thunder stats, Evan, as of this Thursday, before we get into that game on Saturday. The Thunder are 14th in the West. They're 27th in the league in net rating, 29th in offense, 18th in defense. According to Cleaning the Glass, they are second in the league in terms of outperforming their expected win total based on what their net rating is. Basically, this means they're playing much better in terms of getting wins than their numbers would indicate you'd think they should be. The thing that is interesting, and I think what makes this a good style matchup for the Cavs, is they are 28th in three-point frequency, and they take the second most shots in the league at the rim. They are 9th in accuracy at the rim, which is good according to Cleaning the Glass. But if you're thinking about playing the Cavs, if you're thinking about the one area of the floor where the Cavs have 2 dudes who are really long bothering you, it's having Evan Mobley and Jared Allen protecting the rim. This just feels like stylistically the kind of thing the Cavs will be comfortable with dealing with that amount of rim pressure. And just kind of thinking about this cognizantly going into this game, that's going to be the thing I want to watch. I want to see how the Cavs handle a team with Shea and Dort and Giddey, assuming all of them play, just kind of going at the rim and putting pressure on Mobley and Allen inside.
Yeah, I'm interested about that. I'm also interested to see how Oklahoma City kind of defends Garland, Rondo, if he's available, if he does play. Who knows yet? And especially Lamar Stevens, because Lamar Stevens really took advantage of Utah's lack of size on the perimeter and the fact that Utah's perimeter defense is so weak. But like Shea, Dort, and Giddey is just length on length on length. And I think it's going to be really hard for Lamar Stevens to penetrate that. And it's also going to probably frustrate Darius Garland a little bit too. So I'm interested to see how the Thunder play the Cavs as well. I think Jeremiah Robinson-Earl's not bad. I think Derek Favors is just an interesting veteran pickup for them. No Poku probably going to be in this one because he's on assignment with the Oklahoma City Blue, unfortunately, which is just a loss for all of us. But this Thunder team, like you said, is listen, he's like just an anomaly. He's like watching Taco Fall play in person. You're just like, how does a person this big function semi-fluidly and look like they're comfortable enough to play a game where you need a lot of hand-eye coordination? That's just where I'm at. We're like, I like to look at Poku and go, interesting. I don't think he's going to be as great as some of the like really deep dive NBA draft folks thought, but he's interesting at least. I don't know, but
yeah.
This is another game where the Cavs need to just come in and take care of business, not play down to their opponent because the Thunder record-wise aren't great. But like you said, they are playing above expectations at such a high level that they could catch the Cavs off guard, especially on the second of a back-to-back.
Notably, the Cavs. Evan, what do you think the Cavs are in terms of defending the rim? I forgot to look this up before the show. This is why I'm coming back to it. But what rank in the league do you think the Cavs are in terms of protecting the rim? Do 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 do.
Stop it.
You're
Stressing me out.
you gotta guess because either that or you're looking it up
10th.
first.
Oh, well,
Teams against the
I always go low and am surprised by the high result.
teams are shooting 57.9% against the Cavs at the rim. The league average at the rim in terms of forced shots to the basket is 64.4%. The Cavs are like smashing that league average right now. They're the only team allowing 60%. With teams shooting under 60% against them at the rim. So that's notable. This is going to be strength meet strength. The only like kind of weird side bummer of this game to me is, Evan, like this is like peak basketball Twitter hipsters. Like I'm not saying anything original. Kenrich Williams is in health and safety protocols, and he would be a guy that if the Cavs were able to nab him via the trade exception or like for like some kind of like asset swap with OKC or whatever it is, Kenrich Williams is like a good NBA player on like a bargain bin of a contract and would like provide some needed wing depth. He would help every team out there if the contender could go get him, but he's as of right now, I still believe in the health and safety protocol, so we'll not be able to see Kenrich Williams play, and for people to get the glimpse of him because he's good, and I'm a fan. There's a lot of guys on OKC I quite like. I'm a big Dort guy, big SGA guy. I think the point you made about Lamar is particularly of note, just because like if Dort's defending him, he cannot like put his shoulder down and get that mid-range jump shot off at the elbow like he could against
Dort
like
is
Mike
sturdy.
Conley. Lou Dort has just like is just jacked. He's jacked and it rocks.
He's sturdier than a brick shit house, that Lou Dort. Like I'm looking at pictures of him now. His shoulders are just incredible.
Huge. He's huge.
Huge.
Absolutely huge. Evan,
absolute beefcake.
Let me ask you this: if we're wrapping up this road trip here, Cavs are 3-1 on it right now as we're recording.
Oh, I forgot he wore Thunder 35 for the Thunder for a hot second, then switched to 5.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The Cavs at worst are going to finish 500 on this road trip. What would it signify anything to you if they, I think that signifies something in itself, but about them and the teams they've played. But does it say anything to you if they're able to finish 5-1 on this road trip, or at least go 4-2 as we kind of wrap this up?
No, they go 4-1, wouldn't they?
No, aren't they 3-1 right now?
No, they beat Sacramento. They beat Portland. They lost to Golden State.
Am I forgetting?
Then they play San Antonio and Oklahoma City, and then they come home to play Brooklyn. So I think they go 4.
I think I hallucinated the game. That's what it is now. This is where we're at in 2022.
It's hard out there for the number one podcast host.
To my yacht, but so 40. So
either way, 4-1. Yeah, I would be impressed at that. I think it's certainly obtainable for the Cavs. I think I've been more so just watching how this team is responding after like they really got punched in the mouth by Golden State. Like that was probably one of their worst losses they've had in a while, where like they just flat out just looked bad at points, and like they remained competitive, but like it didn't really feel like Golden State was going to lose grasp of that game. But I think it's testament to maybe how this team responds to adversity. They're dealing with no Rajon Rondo right now. Darius Garland is kind of iffy with his back. If I had it my way, I'd say shut him down, not play him. Like maybe play Rondo in one game, shut him down, and then play Garland in the other one just to give them both some type of rest if they're both available. But alas, I think this Cavs team is playing well. I still think they're playing just above my expectations. But I just kind of come to become accustomed to them playing not lesser opponents, but teams that they should beat, they do. And that's just a new thing for me because I'm not used to the Cavs doing that. They usually play down to their opponents. So I think they'll go 4-1, 5-1 if I'm miscounting in my head too.
No,
but,
see, I was gonna come back to that, but I was right. So they beat Portland, lost to the Warriors, beat the Kings, beat the Jazz. It's 3-1. 2 games left.
I guess I can't do
that freaking accurate education over there. Just unbelievable.
But
you went to school for something math related and you can't count. Shouts to you, my guy.
Bro, I have so many textbooks that I look at and I'm like, I don't remember nothing. I retained no information from that class whatsoever. Anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I would consider it a success, and then I think like maybe this is a good momentum builder because you have to go play Brooklyn on Monday, and like that's gonna probably be a tough game to get up for because James Harden was cooking DeMar DeRozan last night, and the Nets really beat the crap out of the Bulls, who are like one of the best teams in the league so far.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued to see how Cleveland handles the Nets on Monday.
Yeah. So to tease you to what's coming up, we want to thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. So on Monday, we're going to recap the weekend. We're going to look ahead more in detail to that Cavs Nets game, which, Evan, if I'm not mistaken, is the first game Kyrie Irving will have played in front of Cavs fans since because he played last year,
Yeah, you're right.
but there was
First
no
time in front of
fans.
fans.
And so I don't think he's played in front of a Cavs crowd since the first time he came back when Gordon Hayward broke his leg.
Yeah, I think so. I hopefully Cavs fans handle it with some maturity and act like they've been here before, but they probably won't. But
Yeah, is what it is.
I hope the
But
Cavs give Kyrie a little bit of a video tribute. I mean, shit, they almost gave one to Tristan Thompson when he came back with Sacramento. Might as well just give one to Kyrie too.
I would give trip reviews to everyone. That's just me though. But just as a note, because of some work travel from next week, I will be on a plane. During this game, I will be somewhere between Dulles and Florida. So see what happens. See if I make it. But Mac Robinson from 93.3 is going to be filling in for me, helping Evan recap that game. Lord knows if Evan will keep the ships on time, if he can do his best Rajon Rondo impersonation, but I'm banking on Mac kind of reining him in there. But everything else throughout the week should be okay. I think the plan is I'm going to record while I'm in Florida. If things are goofy, we'll get someone to slide in and hang out with Evan, but the plan will still be 5 shows. I'm just, it may sound a little bit different, just giving you a forewarning now because, and it looked different in the background and stuff because I will be in a hotel and not in my home. So
At least he won't be calling with Haley O'Shaughnessy in his car again, folks. So it's the little things.
Look, you making a joke 3 years ago, and then I then recorded a podcast outside where my phone was so hot that like it was like scalding. So you know what,
I know,
Evan?
and I appreciate you for that. And I told you to get inside and get some water immediately after we finished.
I did and needed it. But if you want a great second listen, I'm gonna just go off script here. Go check out Locked On Hawks. Brad Rowland is the man. He's done more episodes this week. Like he's done like 6 episodes now because he did a Cam Reddish emergency episode. So go listen to him. Go listen to Locked On Hawks. Check out his analysis of that trade. Check out Locked On XG if you want their side. But Brad's great. Go listen to that wherever you're listening to Locked On Cavs right now. And remember, please go subscribe to us on YouTube. Everyone have a great weekend. Be well. We'll talk to you on Monday.